Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Fear the Queer.
A show that talks about everything on our queer agendas. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Josh. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Unsolved Mysteries.
Dun dun dun. Yes, Unsolved Mysteries.
So, Kyle and I were talking about how much we love hearing about spooky shit. We're ready for October. And then we just decided, why don't we just make a whole episode about our favorite Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah,
So,
and there's a lot out there too, because and I feel like Unsolved Mysteries, like the TV show, has kind of been brought back up since Netflix started doing the new version. I'm
mhm.
obsessed.
Oh, me
Obsessed.
too.
So I'm excited to talk about our favorite Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, me too. But before we get into the heart of our queer agenda today, Kyle, what are you drinking? If I can already guess, I will put $100 down to guess of what you're drinking.
$100 in Monopoly money, maybe. Because
Monopoly
I think you
Junior.
already got it. Okay, what do you think I'm drinking today? hundred
Uh, a,
dollars.
a Trenta iced coffee.
You're right. I'm drinking my Trenta. I'm drinking my Trenta iced coffee from Starbucks. Yum,
I bet you
yum.
could
Size of my
guess.
head.
Right. I was like, I bet you could also, bet $100 what I'm drinking today.
You are a hydrated bitch, so you are drinking water.
Water.
Wow, look at you. Oh, with the
Ah,
ice cubes and all. What was there vodka in there?
no, the water bottle was sitting under my lamp, so it was like hot water.
Hot water. Well, we're about to get into some hot water with these unsolved mysteries. Cheers, queers.
Cheers, queers. Clink, clink.
Clink, clink.
All right. Before we get into our unsolved mysteries, we have another segment of Can You Keep Up? For you guys, in which we talk about all the hot topics of the past week here and whether or not we caught up on everything that we need to talk about here. So,
That's right.
Kyle, would you like to start off with one of our Can You Keep Ups?
Well, in the past few days, keeps up.
Keeps ups.
Keeps up. So in the past few days, if you've been living under a rock, which I don't think you need a mask if you live under a rock, I don't know. But the CDC has announced new guidelines for what you can and can't do for if you're vaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, the CDC says you can hit me up in my DMs because I'm single and ready to mingle. And I'm a cute date. No, that's not what they said. But in so many words, people are allowed to walk around outside if they are vaccinated.
Without a
But there is
mask.
some without a mask. But there is some confusion because they also said that you should be okay to be indoors without a mask. But that's kind of put a big, I don't know, issue when it comes to service industry people or just people dealing with the public, I should say.
Right.
If you're dealing with the public, because there's a lot of confusion right now.
Well, because they worded it so vaguely that it's just you could be indoors in most situations and you'd be fine. It's like, yeah, that means that you probably wouldn't catch it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't wear your mask indoors.
Right.
Because, in healthcare settings, when you're traveling, any private businesses that still mandate a mask, you have to comply to the rules and wear your mask. It's not like you're just going over to your best friend Betty's house and it's just like, oh, mask off, I'm free.
Right. And the thing is that even here in the city of Chicago, the city ordinance is still you have to wear a mask in privately owned businesses that require them. So it has confused a lot of people. I know that I was bartending this weekend and I had a handful of people come in, no mask. And part of me is kind of like, the fuck you don't have a mask for? We've been in this for over a year. But another part of me is like, you are very confused because it is such a vague announcement that I don't think anyone was ready for. So it'd be nice if the CDC was like, hey, in the next few days, we're going to give you updated guidelines on if you're vaccinated, what you can and can't do, who you can and can't see, whatever it might be. But instead they're like, you don't have to wear a mask.
Right.
Because then you get a bunch of people walking around. Like a lady came in and I was like, do you need a mask? And she was like, for what? For what?
For what?
What do you mean for what?
Yeah.
And I was like, please cover the face. It is not cute. But she was just genuinely confused. She put the mask on when I gave her a disposable one, but she was like, what?
Yeah.
Like she was like shocked.
Well, that's the crazy
Even though
thing too, is
she had
because
people around her that were all wearing masks, but she was still confused.
well, we live in a day and age where like clickbait articles are like the number one thing. So like they'll put headlines like on everything. I blame like part of it is the media because like they'll put headlines that just like CDC says no more masks and people are just like okay and like keep
Okay.
scrolling, you know. And then they
Right.
show up, you know, to their business and it's just like did you read the fine print, madame?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of that. I mean, I still feel kind of weird because like I'll be outside without a mask on and I'm like, wait, do people think that I'm not fully vaccinated? Because like, by the way, I am fully vaccinated. We both are. But are people like, oh wait, are you fully vaccinated? Or are you just like, were you just one of those people that never wore a mask outside? Like, I don't
Right.
know. I don't know. It's all very brand new world territory.
You definitely are going to have to unlearn a few things, I think, moving forward. Because, yeah, it's just
Mhm.
like some people are going to confuse you for a Republican without wearing your mask. And it's just like, no, I was just told that I didn't have to anymore. Like, does that make me a Republican?
If I saw you on a street, I would not think you're a Republican with your like green hair and like pierced nose. Like I would not be like, now that there is a conservative.
Right. That is a
That
conservative young lady.
yeah, that lady loves Reagan.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for
Uh,
sure.
no, that's fair. All right, up next on our Can You Keep Up is that on May 16th, the organizers of New York City Pride have announced that police officers have actually been barred from the Pride events up until at least 2025.
In which the
Event
world will end.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when the gay people of the world are just like, yeah, we're just going to actually end everything now.
Yeah.
Basically, organizers claim that, you know, police officers have to be held accountable for all of the violence that they have, you know, damaged queer people over the years, especially Black
Yeah.
people and trans people. It's funny because NYPD spokespersons have said that they are disheartened by the decision, but they will still plan to be present to ensure traffic safety and good order during this huge event. And to me, yeah, I'm just like, I'm sure there's a lot of other people who are qualified to do it without police officers involved. I don't think you need to be there. Sorry. Sorry,
Yeah.
sis.
I have never been to an event where police officers have been present and I have felt safer. It always has escalated. We have both been at different protests and even queer events where officers come in and it feels as though it's like a bully tactic. Last year we went to the drag march and after the march we turned around and lined across the street were all officers on their bikes looking like fucking losers, basically trying to do scare tactics to like intimidate us. Why are you blocking the street?
Well,
Why?
the crazy thing is too is that it was a very huge, like there's a whole block of the road that was cut off here, and like so many protesters were just like lined down the block here. So it's like at first you're just like, okay, like we feel safe, we feel protected, and then slowly but surely you start to turn around and you realize that the crowd is actually getting broken up and the police are moving in closer and closer. So it feels like you're getting trapped, and it's just like we're all we're doing is just coming together for this Pride event. Like there's nothing really that big of a situation that's going on here.
No.
So I totally agree with the NYC Pride organizers.
100%. 100%. And I think the thing is that like I saw some people commenting on like I think it was like Out's Facebook page and it was like older queer people who are like, this really is disheartening. We spent like I'm 67 years old and you know we've come such a long way in progress. But then you click on their page and they're like white and live like in the middle of Nebraska, which is like no shade on, you know, being white in the middle of Nebraska or being 67 or whatever.
Or both.
or all of them.
Yeah.
But I think that like a lot of people don't take into account like others' experiences with police, and it's just very, I don't want to say tone deaf, but very maybe tone deaf is what I'm trying to think of.
I think so.
Like it's just like you're shut up.
Right. Like I don't know. It's just like you do realize like how the liberation of queer rights started, right? And you're going to be talking about like in defense of the police. It's just like
right. Yeah, it's a little bit, as the Gen Zers say, sus.
Sus. I don't understand that
sus.
word at all.
Is it suspicious? Am I sus? What
Is
does
it?
that mean? I don't
I
know.
thought it was like sis.
Like sis, like hey sis.
Like hey sis, is it not? I don't know.
It's not hey sis.
I don't hey sis.
Hey sis. It's Candy.
Yeah.
It's Candy Muse saying sis. Hey sis.
Hey sis. Yeah.
Hey sis. If
All
you
right.
don't have star quality, get the fuck out of here.
If you are a police officer, get the fuck out of here.
Amen.
Amen. All right, Kyle, what
Amen.
is up next on our Can You Keep Up agenda?
So, not to bring down the mood or anything like that, but if you have been following the news, you know that Palestine is under attack by Israeli forces.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like, wow, whoa, Fear the Queer, where are you coming at? I don't understand. Isn't Israel a good thing? There's a lot of different things that we can talk about with this because it is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not anti-Semitic to say so because Zionism and Israel are different than Judaism, and the genocide of one people does not equate the genocide of another. And if
Nor
you're
does it
like, well,
justify it.
it doesn't justify it. And if you're confused on what's happening to Palestine or the land that has been taken from them, and you need to sort of like relate it to something you may understand as people living in the United States, think about like how the white people took land from the Native Americans and shoved them onto reservations,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
that is essentially what is happening to Palestinians in overseas right now, and it's very violent, and our country supports it. And if you're wondering why our country supports it, well, why would they? Because if they go against it, that means they actually have to look at their own war crimes and their own crimes against other humans. And they're not going to do that.
I was going to say, all it does is just go back to the fact that our country is very much funded on the military and protecting ourselves with the military. And so it's kind of become this like parasitic like relationship where it's like the US will fund Israel for, war against Palestinians. And then it just somehow was able to keep us at, bay because we're just like, cool, we're just sitting over here minding our own business. No big deal. Joe Biden actually confirmed, didn't he just confirm funding for Israel's army?
He signed, yep, I have it right here. Joe Biden just approved spending $735 million in weapons to Israel, directly funding violence towards the Palestinians. He's helping aid in war crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That money could have easily went to so many things that are going on in America right now. One, pandemic recovery. Two, mental health funding, so that way we don't need police officers as much. The homelessness problems that we have in America, legislation against, anti-POC queer people crimes. I don't know, just some suggestions that you could throw out there. But no, we spent it all on Israel.
Yeah, you wonder where our taxpayer money is going, and it's going to slaughter others overseas.
Yep.
Point blank, period. No discussion. That is where it's going. And if you're like, how come I can't get healthcare? How come I can't get higher education for free? How come paid maternity and paternity leave? Why can't we extend that? How come minimum wage can't be raised? It's because we are funding the slaughtering of other human beings. Let that sit with you. We're going to get nice and fuzzy today here on Fear the Queer, but right now, if you don't understand how this is a genocide, you shouldn't be even like tuning into us because like I'm a hard stance, like free Palestine.
Yeah.
That's just what it is, baby.
Right. Well, and there's so many people out there too who are just like, doesn't Palestine have its own problems? Like, isn't Palestine also like, misogynistic or anti-LGBTQ and blah, blah, blah and stuff like that? It's just like, sure, every country has their own problems that they have to deal with. And yes, Palestine obviously has to deal with their own issues, but that doesn't justify the fact that something bad is happening to them and that we shouldn't stand in solidarity against oppression. It'd be like, it's the same kind of mentality where it's just like, if a black person is killed, and just like, but didn't they have a drug history? It's like, Does that mean that they're justified to being murdered? No, it does not.
Right.
It's the same type of mentality. It's just like, we're fighting oppression. That is the main thing here. We can't all be free unless we are all free.
Amen. Amen. And that's
anyway,
that on that.
That's that on that, sis. Here, I got a little heated.
No, I think it's good to get heated. I think staying silent in these kinds of situations, which we saw it with Black Lives Matter. We've seen it with police brutality. We continue to see it. So if people are remaining silent, you stand with the side of the oppressors. And if you stand with the side of the oppressors, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't fuck with you.
I don't fuck with you.
That's how I feel. That being said, we're going to end on a quick light note here in that.
Let's get Crystal Light here.
Let's get Pepsi Light. Pepsi Crystal Light.
Pepsi Crystal Light, please welcome to the stage. Pepsi Crystal Light.
Yeah. Yesterday, it was announced that Ariana Grande got married to a real estate agent named Dalton Gomez. And apparently the wedding was so small that like less than 20 people were in attendance. And I started laughing because I think someone tweeted that like Frankie Grande probably wasn't even invited to it, and he probably had to find out. Like
he probably was like, what?
Yeah.
And then like made a video or something.
Right. Been like, my sister helped me come out as gay, and I'm so happy she's married now. It's like, okay, right. Frankie.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, congratulations to Ariana Grande. She's always been a supporter to the LGBTQ plus community.
Well, and it's crazy too, because like in the 3-year time frame that you saw her have a very public breakup with Mac Miller, and then unfortunately he passes away, and then you have Pete Davidson and that whirlwind romance, and then that ends unfortunately. So it's nice to see Ariana Grande being able to have some happiness that she deserves, because let's be real, without her we wouldn't have a lot of cute queer music out right now, like mainstream queer music to listen to right now.
I mean, I have a playlist that's just called Dance Diva, and it's all the songs that I want to listen to when I can go back to the club, and Into You, Break Free, all those are on there. What?
I thought it was like a run-on sentence. You're like, so I can go back into clubs and into you. I was just like, oh, we're not going there today.
I can go back into clubs and I can run into you, and I can barely breathe, and all I want to do
is break free.
Is to fall in deep, because close ain't close enough till we cross that line. Hey.
And now, to get the heart of our queer agenda, we are going to be talking about some unsolved mysteries. Is that my scary voice?
You sound scary.
Yeah.
And very much like you. Welcome to Unsolved Mysteries. In this episode, we will be discussing. And then they would say what they were going to be discussing. Maybe you can help us solve an unsolved mystery tonight. That's what they would say on the one from like the 80s and 90s. And now they're just like, listen to this disturbing thing. We're not going to tell you anything else. On the Netflix one.
Right. Well, because like in this day and age, like if you can't solve a mystery with all the digital technology, you're never going to solve it.
Probably aliens.
Aliens. It's always aliens.
Always aliens.
All right. So Kyle and I have compiled our 3 favorite unsolved mysteries that we have learned about, discussed, talked about over the years. And we wanted to share these with you guys in the sense that maybe you could solve them yourself.
Possibly. Maybe. If you want to try. I don't know if you will, but if you want to try. See, I have my notes ready. I have little note cards.
I have a 3-page document of it.
Well, I have poor, like, messy handwriting, but we are professional bitches, and we're ready. I have my speaking voice ready. Here, let me finish this Trenta. My Trenta Starbies.
You just broke character. Let me finish my Trenta Starbies.
Don't worry. Because she what? Because she has another one. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I came prepared because you need to be caffeinated when talking about spooky things, because I I don't know about you, Josh, but as I was looking up this stuff, I have a tendency to work late at night, and it was like maybe 2, 3 in the morning, and I was freaking myself out researching some of these things. I definitely went down some rabbit holes on the internet, and the goosebumps were out. So I don't know. I'm excited to talk. I love spooky ooky things.
All right, well then get to it. You're like making me like amped up. You're like, just say it already.
So, the first one. Now, I may have talked about this on this show before, but I kind of wanted to go back into more of a history point of it. If I haven't talked about it, that's just my own thing. I have a tendency to talk about this experience because I have an actual moment where this happened to me, or I have some connection to this unsolved mystery. Now, the unsolved mystery is that of the ghost town in Michigan called Pere Cheney, which is Precheney, if you want to look it up for yourself.
Like Lawrence Cheney.
Cheney, like Lawrence Cheney.
Yeah.
Now, Pere Cheney was known to be a railroading lumber town back in 1874. It was founded. And it was actually given a grant from the state of Michigan to build the railroad, which would go from Pere Cheney, which is just outside of Gaylord, Michigan, which is like kind of up towards, it's pretty north. It's like kind of up towards the top of the mitten, up to Mackinac City, which is at the very tip top point.
Oh, okay.
And that railroad would transport lumber because Michigan was quite a lumber town. Now, as it was quite bustling, you know, we have the railroad, we have lumber, there was a school, there's tons of stuff happening.
Lots a whole of school?
A whole one school. And this town was founded in 1874, but became a ghost town by 1917. Now, you may be like, it's not long at all. And you may be like, ooh, so that happens sometimes. Sometimes there's ghost towns. But the legend surrounding why and how it became a ghost town is what is unsolved. So scientifically, it is believed that everyone in the town developed cholera or diphtheria, which is an airborne illness that basically just like knocks you out. It's like having extreme flu-like symptoms. Kind of like a pandemic that we are currently living through.
I was like, is this like a full circle type thing?
It's a full circle moment. So this started happening in the late 1800s, around 1901, when the town has already been in its bustling times. And the first started with the children starting to die out. And because it started with the children, the townspeople believed it was not an illness, but actually a curse. Now, where did the curse come from? Well, it came from a woman who gave birth to a child out of wedlock. And because of this, the townspeople, because it was, you know, a different time, am I right, ladies?
Right.
They sent her to the woods on the outskirts of town where her child died because there was no way for them to take care of it. So it is believed by the townspeople that the woman was a witch. And because her child died, the witch cursed the town so that all the town's children would die, right?
Oh my god.
So they went forth and found her in the woods, took her back to the town, and hung her in the cemetery as punishment. It happened.
It's not even, they don't even know.
Allegedly it happened, right?
Okay.
So even though they killed this woman and children were dying, they tried to rebuild the town, right? They tried. They really tried. So this is 1901. A few years after, there was a huge fire. Coincidence or curse? And then diphtheria came back and started to kill more people.
I make a comeback. Yeah.
Diphtheria is Roman's revenge.
Right.
Now, Pere Cheney was eventually a ghost town. No one lived there anymore. And it was bought up by the township. And you can still get to it. The only thing that is left is a vandalized cemetery. Now, the reason I have some connection to this is a few years ago, my friends and I, on our way back from staying in Mackinac City in Michigan, stopped in Pere Cheney because we heard of some haunted things, because it is supposedly haunted.
Well, yeah.
And some things that happened were we lost track of time. Our electronics, like our phone, stopped working. I saw shadows towards the edge of the woods.
Nope.
But I think the scariest thing that happened was when we got back to the van, there was actual handprints. Not, you know how like there will be dust and then you'll see like a handprint that took off the dust?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this looked almost as though you put dust on the hand and then touched the car. And they were child size.
Ah!
Now, why is this an unsolved mystery? Why you may ask, this is an unsolved mystery? Well,
Right.
no one knows exactly why it became a ghost town, because it had been a bustling railroad community. No one knows where the people went. No one knows.
No documents.
There's no documents. No one knows why everyone died, even though diphtheria seems to be the reason scientifically why they died. But was it brought upon because of a witch's curse or because of science?
That's crazy. Your cat is like freaking out because of this.
I was going to say, do you hear a cat?
Yeah. Is it a black cat?
It's not a black cat. She's meowing.
Oh, she's scared.
She knows. I'm just saying that there is a lot of very weird things that happened in Pere Cheney.
But it's straight out of a horror movie. Like the townspeople banish a woman, they send her to the woods. Also, could you imagine being a woman? You get a baby out of wedlocks. You're already just like stressed enough as it is. The townspeople all of a sudden hate you and just like, go away, witch. And you're just like, well, fuck. You go into the woods, your baby dies, and then they bring you back to kill you. Like,
yep.
Even if she wasn't a witch, I hope they're all cursed anyway.
So it is an unsolved mystery. Now, some people believe that there is the town Gaylord that is really close to where Pere Cheney was. A lot of people believe that when the town started to decline, the remaining people, which was only 20 people by 1917, literally 20 people in this bustling town were left alive. They all moved to Gaylord. That's what people allege.
Okay.
There's no documents confirming this because it was the early 20th century, but it does not make sense why there's no buildings left and why the only thing left is the cemetery that the alleged witch was also allegedly killed in.
Right.
And even some people, the local like police department or sheriff's department, they encourage people, don't go to the cemetery. You can go to the cemetery. It's down like multiple dirt roads. It is scary as hell. And the first time we were going to go to it on our way up to Mackinac City, and it was like 9:30 at night. It had started to get dark. And as we were driving down the roads, our phones stopped working. You could say this is because we were in the middle of nowhere, or you could say there were some haunted things going on.
I think of the latter.
Right. But as we were going, there were some people, there were cars that were approaching us at high speed. That's when we realized it was time to get the fuck out of there. We'll come back in the daylight. When we came back in the daylight, there were two women, very friendly drunk lesbians, who actually thought that my friends and I were witches, because they also had heard of the legend. But they also were confused. What happened to this town? But it is a ghost town, but lack of town. And the cemetery itself does not even look like a cemetery because it's vandalized almost to the point where you're like, this doesn't look like a cemetery. And when we were there, there was actual headstones that had melted candles on top of it, which leads me to think if there are witches in the area, there may be some kind of sacrifices or rituals
Yeah.
happening in
Well,
that
because like
area.
if you think about it, like if they all left by like 1917, like you said, like that's not that long ago. So there
No,
might, you would think that there would still be like a few people left alive who would have been like, I actually was there, I actually lived there. But
right.
no one is talking about it. It's
There's
almost as if the witch
no
is like plucking
documentation.
them off of the face of the earth itself.
I'll tell you this, I felt exhausted after being there. It's the most connected to ghosts or spirits I've ever felt. And I've had a few like kind of spirity experiences. I'm sure we've talked about it on the podcast. The
Mm-hmm.
shadow people of my apartment. An
Mm-hmm.
unsolved mystery. Who are the shadow people of
Who
my
are the
apartment?
shadow people in Kyle's apartment? That is
I, I
unsolved mystery number 2.
I will say they usually only come when you are here. So I don't know what that says about you.
It's because I like to play with the Ouija board.
You do, but
That's a
I
whole
don't play
nother
with.
story.
That's a whole
Yeah.
nother story. I don't play with Ouija boards. So the unsolved mystery of the ghost town of Pere Cheney, Michigan, which you can visit. It's one of the top 10 most haunted places in the Midwest on some lists.
Oh.
So you can go to it if you can find it. But I would say go during the day. Do not go at night. And
And
if
don't run
anyone
into
else
any
has,
lesbian witches.
oh, they were lovely. I loved the lesbians. They were kind of drunk. They were drinking like Mike's Hard Lemonade. I was living for them.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, they were also like, how was this a town? And I'm like, girl, I don't know, because there's nothing here. Everything's
Right.
overgrown in forest.
That's crazy.
So it is pretty crazy. That's my first
That's a good
unsolved
one.
mystery.
That's a
love
good
it.
one. I like
And I
that.
also feel very connected to it since I've experienced a bit of it. And even when I was trying to like look up more stuff on it, there's so much discrepancies because it's kind of like, they said sort of situation where it's like some people say this, some people say that. But what can be confirmed is it was a bustling town that now is just a few broken headstones in the middle of nowhere.
And
Michigan.
no buildings, no like railroad,
no buildings,
no
nothing. There is some railroad left.
Oh, okay.
That is kind of scary. There is some railroad left. But
Huh.
it is
I
pretty weird.
love stuff like that. I would love to visit something like that one day. That'd be really cool.
Maybe we'll go visit sometime. It's
And
probably
maybe
a
we'll never
7-hour
come back.
drive. It's a 7-hour drive from. No, I'm coming back. I do not die in this haunted situation.
Just like that disease, I am making a comeback.
Oh God, no.
All right. So that
What is
was
your first?
Yeah, my first
Do you have
unsolved
goosebumps?
mystery. I do. Little goose pimples. My first one is the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. Have you ever heard of this story?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
So Frederick Valentich, who was born on June 9th, 1958, making him a Gemini.
I was about to say Gemini.
Yeah. He had been training for years to become a commercial airline pilot. He had held like 150 hours of airtime to his name, and he was authorized to fly at night under special circumstances. So, you would think that he'd be along the lines of, being able to be a commercial air pilot one day.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was that he was kind of kooky. He had actually, on 2 separate occasions, failed all 5 of the commercial airline tests that you have to do to become a pilot. Yeah.
That's not good.
That's not good, sis. And then on top of that, he was also afraid to become a commercial airline pilot because he explained to his father that UFOs exist. And there might be one out there that could get me one day. And his father's just like, what are you talking about? Like, go be a pilot. Stop being a disappointment. So, on the night of October 21st, 1978, right in the height of spooky season, Frederick Valentich left from Moorabbin Airport at 6:19 p.m. on a training flight that he had actually taken before. So the flight was supposed to be like a standard, like 1 hour loop around, and then he comes back into, land. That being said, on this flight, crazy things started to happen. Valentich actually radioed the Melbourne Air Services that about 10 minutes into his trip, an unidentified aircraft was seen in the distance. And it's crazy because there's this long transcript out there that talks, or that you can read, of like their exchange and everything, but the audio tapes were never released to the public. So if you read the transcript, there's a few like back and forth of just like, what are you seeing here? And he says that it is a silver aircraft and it has 4 landing lights on top of it here, and it's making its way all around me. Like there were times that it was like beside him and he could see it, and there were times that it was hovering above him. And throughout this exchange, he's getting a little bit more panicky. He's just like, I don't know what's happening. I can't see it. Like, can someone help me out here? The last thing that he said that he spotted was when the aircraft was above him, all of a sudden he said that he saw a green light. And the last words that were over the transmission were, it's hovering above me and it's not an aircraft. Shortly after that, the transmission cuts out and all you hear is static.
Oh God.
Yeah. So he never returned, and a search then started to happen for 4 days for his plane. Now, during these 4 days, the Australian authorities said that they couldn't find a single thing of what was happening, and they theorized that because he wasn't the best pilot, that they're like, well, the best case scenario situation that we could say is that he actually flipped upside down when he was flying, and he was actually seeing his own reflection of the aircraft on the water. And because of that, he then became disoriented and then crashed into the ocean. Now, this is where the story gets juicy. 6 weeks later, an amateur photographer named Roy Manifeld came forward with a few photographs that he had taken the night that Valentich disappeared. So he's scrolling through his photos and he's taking pictures of the Australian sunset. And then all of a sudden he noticed that there is a black spot on the right-hand corner of one of his photographs. And he's just like, oh, damn. It's just like, that must have been like a negative like print or like a printing error or whatever. So it goes back to the photographer or the printing place. It's just like, hey, can you fix this photo for me? They look at the negative. It's actually on the film itself. He took a picture of a black object in the sky over the Australian Sea.
That's a UFO.
Which proves, well, it doesn't really prove, but it goes to show that we're not exactly sure what happened to Frederick that night. Sure, you can say that maybe he got disoriented and like was flying upside down and then he like nosedived into the ocean. Sure. But you would think that because of transmission, you would know of where he was at and you could look in that area of where the crash could have happened. They never found anything at all.
No plane, no wreckage, no body.
No. And you talk about this, like when people are sensitive to that type of stuff, like they tend to be more susceptible of being victims to that sort of situation.
Yes.
So if Frederick Valentich believed in UFOs, it's very possible that he was abducted by a UFO. And last year alone, the CIA even admitted that there are UFOs out there.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It's, literally like 2 days ago, UFOs was trending on Twitter in the USA.
And no one gives a shit. Like when it's actually presented to us, people are just like, I don't, whatever, no one cares. But you gotta believe. You gotta believe people.
Yeah, I think that the universe is too expansive to, and I'm not selfish and naive in thinking that we can't be the only creatures in the entire universe.
There are so many galaxies like so far away. There are so many people who
I've
have
seen
like
Star
another
Wars.
Yeah, there's so many people who have like another Earth like out there somewhere. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. Frederick Valentich could be all the way like over in like 2 other galaxies, like living his life over there.
He's the shadow person in my apartment.
Could be. We don't know.
Maybe those are aliens.
Maybe those are aliens.
Maybe they're extraterrestrials coming in.
Maybe they're not ghosts. Maybe they're aliens. That'd be a cool theory.
Kind of trying to like project themselves into the apartment. Sorry, I just looked up from my like camera looking at the computer and I saw like some black dots and I was like, it's just because the ring light is in my eyes. but in my head I was like, have
UFO?
You returned?
They're also making a comeback.
Oh, everyone's making it. Shadow people, they heard that I'm friends with them. I don't think there's negative energy, but that is so freaky. So you think that they did the Australian government say anything like, oh yeah, the UFO probably got him, or they're just like, he disappeared, he was a bad pilot?
Well, the officials are trying to say that like the best case scenario situation that they can think of is that he got confused during his flight and fell off the face of the earth. But I don't necessarily believe that. I think that's just more of like a narrative that they're just trying to paint to cover their own butts.
Right. Is there, I mean, are there any islands that he could have crashed on or anything
No,
like that?
apparently the closest place that he could have gone to was still like 30 miles away from where he supposedly crashed. So,
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he crashed. It
mm-mm.
sounds like he was
Something
taken.
unexplained has happened. Yeah,
Something
exactly.
unexplained happened, and whether it was extraterrestrials or the government
Who knows?
or who knows.
We don't
I'm
know,
just
sis.
saying, we
Yeah.
don't know. I love
So
it.
that is my first unsolved mystery.
You're like, and back to being bright and happy.
Right. And back to being happy.
After like being all creepy.
Yeah. So, what do you think?
Very spooky. I think aliens took him,
I
but it
think
is
so too.
unsolved. It's
True.
an unsolved
We
mystery, but I totally think that aliens probably could have taken him.
I
Just
mean,
saying.
it's definitely like one of the most like convincing stories I've heard of like potential alien abduction. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's not a whole lot of evidence saying that aliens did take him, but there's not really a whole lot of evidence saying that they didn't.
exactly.
You know, like
Yeah.
could he have crashed into the ocean and just sunk all the way to the ocean? Who knows? There's also some people out there say that there are UFOs in the bottom of the ocean because everyone says, oh, we can't go to the bottom of the ocean. We can't do this. We can't do that. I think that's nonsense. I think that we do have the technology, and I think they're hiding something from us.
There's something down there. And it's not the
There's
giant
definitely
squid.
something. No. Uh-uh. No,
Yeah.
there's definitely something down there.
Yeah. So, what's your second one?
So my second one, some people may already know this, especially if you are of a certain age or in not you, Josh, you're not that
Oh.
old. Oh, no. We are young people. We weren't even born when this happened yet. But if you were alive in the late 80s in the Chicago area, you may have actually even witnessed this next unsolved mystery. So, the next unsolved mystery I have is the Max Headroom broadcast. Do you know who Max Headroom is?
That's a person?
Max Headroom is, sorry, do you hear the cat again?
I do. She knows. She knows who it is.
Every time I start talking about something, she wants to speak up.
Right.
You got a lot to say, kitty cat.
I'm just imagining like two like FBI agents like dragging her away. She's like, aliens are real.
Yeah, she's like, because she doesn't really meow. She just says, So Max Headroom, I wasn't really familiar with who he was, but in the like mid to late 80s, it was this British TV show, and basically he was like half human, like a humanoid robot type thing. He kind of looks like Val Kilmer if Val Kilmer was made out of Play-Doh.
To be fair, yeah. Val Kilmer also looks like Val Kilmer made out of Play-Doh.
Yeah, so imagine that, but like, Val Kilmer made out of Play-Doh. Val Kilmer made out of Val Kilmer made out of, yeah. So kind of like very like almost like weirdly plastic surgery, but basically it was kind of like a parody of someone in the future being like a future news reporter who was talking about the news, but it was like supposed to be funny, right?
Okay.
Well, that ended in like 85, I want to say. Regardless, if you were in Chicagoland area, November 22nd, 1987, and you were watching the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions, my two worlds colliding.
True.
Literally, you may have experienced this. So on that night, people were watching the football game when all of a sudden the broadcast was interrupted, and on the screen came someone wearing a Max Headroom mask and a metal background. And it did not do anything. It didn't say anything at first, but people were like, what is this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then it kind of like switched back into the football game. No one paid too much mind to that, but later that evening, around 11 o'clock, PBS was airing an episode of Doctor Who, which, if you don't know what Doctor Who is, it's a British TV show. It's been on forever. When in the middle of Doctor Who, Max Headroom, the masked Max Headroom, came back on screen. Now, this time he was on screen for a little bit longer than just a split second. His voice was muffled. You can barely understand what he is saying. Now, I'll try to post like the video or any pictures, and we can let you decide for yourself what you think might be happening here. But basically, it is someone in a Max Headroom mask talking about frickin' liberals. They mentioned something about like a glove, possibly a bloody glove. A lot of just like random things are being said. And the interrupted broadcast ends with the person in the mask bending over, pulling down his pants, and a woman comes out dressed as like a Western, like Annie Oakley type, and starts swatting his butt with a fly swatter.
Oh.
Now, it suddenly was switched back to Doctor Who, and everyone was like, did we just see something? Luckily,
Right.
you know, in the 80s, people were able to still record TV shows and stuff like that. So people do have it on tape. You can go on YouTube, you can look it up. But just the images alone of this person with this mask on is disturbing enough. It is very strange, and it is very unsettling. Now, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, the fact that like someone was able to interrupt a broadcast for something as crazy as that, like, how were they not caught?
So here's the thing. I did some digging because, you know, it's good to research for this show. And according to some people on Reddit, the reason that they were not able to catch them, or why it was so easily that they were able to kind of like jump into this television station, is because back in the day it was all analog. Now we're all digital, which makes it pretty much impossible to interrupt TV stations.
Sure.
They would have caught it at this point. Now, like I said, no one knows who did it. There have been people who have accused others of doing it, but no one knows who interrupted the broadcast or why they interrupted the broadcast, why they wore this mask of Max Headroom, why they were saying and doing what they were trying to do. Were they just trying to troll? I did find a few things out on the internet. And one person believes they know who did it. And this person will not give names, and it's still technically unsolved.
Okay.
But according to them, back in the late 80s, they were a kid, and they knew these two brothers that used to pull pranks. And essentially, in my head, I'm like, oh, you're failed film students. Hello, welcome to the club. And they were able to get onto the broadcast, hack into the system, basically. And they did this all as a joke. That may be true. It may not be true. But that's what makes it unsolved. Was this just a joke and a prank? Or was there more sinister accusations behind this? Was it even a person in that mask? You know, we just talked about extraterrestrials.
Right.
What does it all mean? Was it someone from another dimension tuning in to our dimension? It remains
Possibly.
unsolved.
That's crazy. I was gonna say, because one, Chicago is a huge broadcast. Like, they broadcast like to so many people. So like the fact that no one was able to catch on to that. Sure, I don't know what the difference between analog and digital is, but the fuck, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it remains unsolved to this day.
Could you
Over
imagine, like, if
30
you're
years
watching
later.
Doctor Who, like, imagine, like, it's like the person who's just like, I haven't seen Doctor Who in so long. I'm so ready to catch up. I'm so happy. I have my wine. I have my food. And they're just like, ah!
It is, and the video is unsettling because you're not really sure what the person is saying. It could just be, it's kind of garbled, but people have tried to translate the muffled audio. It's unsettling, and no one
Garble
knows
is
why.
crazy. Yeah. Garble is creepy. Like,
Yeah,
when you can't
it
understand what they're saying, it's just like, ugh.
it's quite unsettling. And on top of that, Max Headroom was already kind of like a creepy looking character to begin with. So Imagine
if
the
it's
creepy looking character as a mask. It's already unsettling.
it's a mask of Val Kilmer as Play-Doh as Val Kilmer. So yeah, that's terrifying.
It's what nightmares have made of.
Right.
So that's my second unsolved mystery.
Okay. My second unsolved mystery actually is I just realized again in Australia. I don't know what it is about the
Crikey!
Australian people. Yeah.
Well, you must be watching Drag Race Down Under. Not
Ooh,
sponsored.
not sponsored, but nice plug. I like that. So actually, I'm gonna take you back here. Have you ever heard of the Mary Celeste?
No.
Okay,
Wait.
so it was a
No.
ship in the 1800s that is famous for known as like the most famous ghost ship because what had
Mhm.
happened was is that the ship was found, but there was absolutely no one on it. And like there
Oh,
was no trace of any
lovely.
human being. Yeah, there was no trace of any human
Normal.
being on it. Yeah. That was back in the 1800s. Then I could see why it'd be a little like I could see like why it would be an unsolved mystery because you're just like this random ship and there's no like logs or anything to show anything. But
Mhm.
this actually happened in 2007, and it's the ghost ship of Kaz 2. So on April 20th, 2007, a yacht named Kaz 2 was found floating in the northeast coast of Australia, and there was supposed to be a three-man crew on it. Derek Batten and the brothers Peter and James Turnstead. When the ship was discovered on April 20th, no one was on board at all. Um, what was even stranger is that when people found it, it seemed as though they had just left. Um, the laptop computer was on and it was on the internet, like as if someone was just like recently searching something. The engine
Mhm.
was still running. Food and flatware was set out on the table for them to eat, and there was like no sign of any foul play, any like abductions or anything like that. They were just gone. And it's so crazy because um, the laptop actually recorded a video right before their disappearance.
What?
hmm
So there is
So
something?
there's something, and
Okay.
it looks like an idyllic summer day for them. Like they're just,
Mhm.
driving along on the boat, chatting, whatever, getting ready to
As
fish. That was the whole point
as
of the
one
trip.
does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
45 minutes later, they're never to be found again, and there's still no trace of them whatsoever. Now, the crazy thing is that investigators are even baffled of like how this could even happen because like with how even though it's a yacht there would still be signs of something happening, like if someone died
Right.
overboard, like you would probably see the dead body floating or
Mhm.
because they all had life jackets on, but
Mhm.
nothing, absolutely nothing. So one theory is that one of the gentlemen was fishing and the fishing lure caught on something, and because of that he flew overboard. And then apparently it was one of the brothers that happened to. Then the second brother jumped in to try to save him. Okay, sure. But then what happened to the captain of the boat? Apparently what happened through this theory is that the captain, seeing that the two brothers went overboard, tried to turn the engine around to save them, and because of that a big gust of wind came and knocked him over as
Oh
well.
jeez.
Which I mean, could you imagine? Like that would probably would have happened in like 30 seconds. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my
Like all
god.
three of them just like
All of
float
them
off.
gone.
Right. But the fact that they all had life jackets on and their bodies were never recovered, there's no sign of like anyone actually falling overboard or anything like
Mhm.
that.
Did they
I,
were their phones there? Were their phones on them?
their phones were there, but there was like
Okay.
they didn't use it. They were older gentlemen. They were like in their late
Oh, okay.
60s. So
Okay.
like, they weren't really active on it. But yeah, food was still there, the engine was still running, and they're just gone
But
without a
no one was
trace.
there. And there was
Mm-mm.
no sight there was no bodies, no
Nope.
clothing, nothing.
Yeah. And the fact that this happened like 13 years ago, it's
Yeah.
insane to me. And I don't remember like hearing about any of that at all until I just discovered it. It's like it's now called the modern day Mary Celeste because it's like a modern day
A
ghost
ghost
ship.
ship.
Mm-hmm.
So weird.
Right? Do you remember that
So
movie
weird,
Ghost
so
Ship?
disturbing. Never watched it, but yes, I do remember that movie.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm just like, there's like some paranormal stuff going on here. We're like,
Is it paranormal? Is it extraterrestrial? Was there a strange like suicide pact that they all had together? Do you think pirates came?
I don't know, because that's the thing.
I
Like,
don't know.
I was thinking, because I was just like, I mean, I don't know any instances of modern day pirates, but like back in the day of Mary Celeste, that was like one of the probable theories is that pirates overtook the ship, kidnapped the people,
Right.
and then just left the ship. Sure, I couldn't understand that. In 2007 in like Northeast Australia,
Well, do you remember the Somali pirates? Do you remember when
true,
that happened?
true.
So that's like kind of modern day pirates. Maybe we're just thinking, maybe it's just like a different idea that we have in our head of what a pirate might be.
Is this like the Australian Captain Phillips?
I'm the captain now.
I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy to
That's
me.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy, spooky, and unsolved.
And unsolved. So if you'd like to go, swimming in Australia, actually just don't visit Australia for a minute. It seems kind of dangerous.
Yeah, give it a hot. Maybe just don't go in the water.
Right. But then if you're stuck on land, you have like giant bugs that are going to kill you.
I'm just gonna ride around in like a kangaroo's pouch and just hope
Right.
for the best.
Australia is a strange place, I will say that.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. It's unsolved.
The whole continent is unsolved.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so that was my second one. Short and sweet here. But
Short, sweet, we love it.
You have one more though?
I do have one more. And this, some people also may know this one. It is known as like one of those like unsolved mysteries that a lot of people like to talk about, like to theorize about. There's blogs about it, there's TV episodes about it. But this one is called Bella Thorne's Skull in the Witch Elm.
Not Bella Thorne.
Not Bella Thorne. We're not doing her OnlyFans. This is not a plug. But Bella Thorne and Bella in the Witch Elm. Have you ever heard of her?
I heard of this. Go on, though.
Okay. So back in April 18th, 1943, a few young British boys in the British Midlands went searching for food in the forest. Now, if you're wondering why were they searching for food in the forest? Well, it's because the UK was being bombed by Nazis. We are in the middle of World War II, and they had run out of food. So they were actually looking for bird eggs because they were starving. As they were going through the woods, they came across this tree. Now, this tree was like this big elm tree that has these roots coming up, but there's like an opening on the inside. So the boys thought, oh, there might be a bird nest in there because it wasn't huge, but it was big enough that little birds could have, gone in there, made a little nest for themselves, and given these boys some eggs to eat. As one of the boys reached in, he actually grabbed a human skull.
Oh my God.
Obviously terrified, the boys went back to their homes and said, we can never talk about this. Well, if you're like a little kid, you're gonna talk about this. And one of the boys ended up telling his dad, and the dad was like, well, that's messed up. That's not normal. And went to the police.
Well, that's weird.
Well, that's weird. As they're being bombed and starving, they're like, there's also human remains stuffed inside of this tree. So they go to the police, and the police begin to investigate. When the police go to the tree, the remains are a skull, and they realize it is a woman, roughly around the age 35. They think small in frame, but not small enough that she would have gotten into the tree by herself. She would have had brown hair, may have been a little bit mousy. There wasn't a whole lot of remnants with her besides a wedding ring, some articles of clothing that the tags were cut out of, which we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
And in her throat was rolled up taffeta, like the fabric that would be on
it's like Sounds of the Lamb shit.
Yes. So they pull this out. They obviously start, asking, does anyone know this woman? Is anyone missing their wife? No one comes forward. And this is back in April. So months go on and on and on. And suddenly there is graffiti in this small little town in the British Midlands. It says, "Who put Bella in the witch elm?" So people started to believe that this woman's name was Bella, who is in the witch elm. No one knows who did the graffiti, but some people think that it was just a hoax. Some people were bored. I mean, we are in the middle of World War II, so maybe they're like, we need some sort of entertainment and drama as we're being bombed. But the graffiti did not lead to any other leads of who this Bella person may have been. Now, I mentioned
I was like, where did Bella come from?
Right. Now, I mentioned that tags on the clothing were cut out. So if you like unsolved things and maybe you've watched the most recent Netflix Unsolved Mysteries, you may remember an episode where there is a woman who died, and they're not sure if it was a suicide, if she was shot by someone else, but it is known that if you are a spy and part of some espionage rings, you cut out the tags inside of your clothing so that you cannot be tracked and traced. Because as we know, if you're a spy and they trace you back to whoever you're working for, well, that's not good for anyone involved, at least in your organization. So some believe she may have been a spy. Now, the theory that she is a spy is also furthered believed because back then there was a woman named Anna who wrote a letter to authorities. Now, we don't know if her name was really Anna, but she signed the letter Anna, saying that she believed the woman's name was Bella and that she was, ready, a Nazi spy.
Yep.
Who supposedly had dropped down, parachuted into the Midlands, and had encountered some people that knew that she was an enemy and killed her and stuffed her into the tree.
Oh, wow.
And some people believe they know who this woman was. They said, oh, her name is Bella. And they traced it back to this woman who was a spy who worked for the Germans, whose name was Bella. But that was refuted because they found out that that woman actually died in France a few years before.
Okay.
So there is a theory that she was a spy, ran into some trouble, and they pushed her remains in there. And if this theory also works because if she was a spy, no one would come forward to claim her body.
Well,
because
no.
Why would you come forward and be like, that's my girlfriend or that's my wife? Because you completely blow your cover. There's also a weaker theory because, again, it is an unsolved mystery. There is another theory that she was just a woman living her life and got very scared because of the bombings and the raids, and that she ran into the forest and hid herself into a tree, got stuck, and died there. This is a weaker theory, though, because police and investigators believe that although she was small, roughly like 5'3", she would have not put herself into the tree. It just would. She would have been stuck. She was shoved in there.
It would have been like a Winnie the Pooh type situation where she's just like halfway in.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also would not explain why she was missing a shoe and had taffeta shoved into her throat.
Yeah, no.
Now the third,
was there any other foul? Was there any other like foul play signs?
Well, the thing is that her remains were so like gone. She was basically a skeleton at this point that they only had little bits and pieces to try to figure out like, okay, who was she? What was this person? You know, so they were basically just drawing on like, okay, you know, they tried dental records. No one came forward with the dental records. So, which led other people to believe that she was not from that area. Now, the last theory that I think could be quite possible, and probably the most hair-raising and goosebump-inducing theory, is she was used as a human sacrifice for a local witch coven.
What?
So, the idea that witches are extinct is not quite true. In fact, as we know, throughout history and humanity, there are witches and spiritual people and voodoo and all this stuff. In every single country, every single place that you have humans, there are these spiritual leaders, practitioners, all that kind of stuff. And the same was true in the UK. And in fact, because we are in the Midlands in the UK, and even though it was the 1940s where you would think, oh, there wouldn't be witches in the 40s, it actually, because they were kind of isolated from the greater society, there were still witch covens, although they were a lot more quiet and more underground than other places where they would be a little bit more like open with it. So the theory is she was used as a sacrifice and shoved into the witch elm. And now the witch elm, I should also say, is not spelled like spooky witch. It's spelled WYCH. So just to put that out there, it is a creepy name, but it has nothing to do with actual like.
I was like, it's fitting.
Witches.
Yeah,
it's fitting. So it is possible that a surviving witch coven in the UK took her and used her as a human sacrifice for their own doing. And some believe this is possible to be true. It kind of adds up because why was there taffeta in her mouth? No one came forward. Why was she shoved in a tree? But it also could be the spy theory.
What is the combination of both? What if she was a Nazi spy? She ran into a coven of witches, and the witches are like, perfect, kill her.
Yeah.
And then stuffed her in the witch elm.
It is quite possible.
Which is doing the Lord's work.
Which is doing the Lord of Hell's work.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is Bella in the Witch Tree.
That's crazy.
Unsolved. No one knows who this woman was. And the theories, people have so many theories of who she could have been, why she was stuffed in the tree.
I'm so curious about the
I have goosebumps right now. I have goosebumps. Yeah.
The graffiti of like who put Bella, like that's crazy.
Yeah, there was multiple graffitis. One of them referred to her as Lou Bella. Another referred to her as Bella, but no one knows if that, tracked. No one was able to find the person who did it, and some people believe the person who wrote the first one also wrote the second one based on the handwriting. But if we're going to be really honest here, it doesn't necessarily track, because if you're writing really quickly, it could be anyone. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Like it's not like,
how could you prove that?
You have specific handwriting. Right. So that is my third favorite unsolved mystery. And I would think the creepiest in my lineup. Because it, I love things that have some semblance in our world, but the theories, there's so many different theories of what could have happened. And
the possibilities are endless. Yeah.
The possibilities are literally endless.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is
sorry.
I imagine the therapy that those little boys must have had to go through.
I was like, imagine a starving boy, like I'm just imagining like a Scooby-Doo moment where he just like pulls up the skull, he's just like, not that, like pushes it back.
Raggy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Bird eggs. Yeah.
Who put Wary?
Yep.
Oh, that's scary. But I do like the idea that witches were fighting the Nazis. I really do like that theory. Like that combination.
That could be a whole movie. If anyone, Hollywood, you wanna work with us? Witches fighting Nazis? Let's do it. World War II. Let's do it.
What was his name? Like Taika Waititi, like when he did Jojo Rabbit.
Taika Waititi.
Like, like he shouldn't have done like Jojo Rabbit. He should have done like who put Bella in the witch elm and made it like a Nazi witch movie. That would have been great.
I think, Josh, you and I just figured out our next project together. Let's start
working
on it. I'm serious.
Right. I was going to say, we're leaving. But before we go, I do have one more unsolved mystery.
Okay, what is your last unsolved mystery?
So my unsolved mystery actually brings it back to my homeland of Iowa.
Where the corn grows high and the people are sweet. Right?
No.
I don't know.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where the people are high and the corn is sweet.
There you go. There we go. That's way more fitting. So this is the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. Johnny Gosch was a 12-year-old newspaper boy who lived in West Des Moines, Iowa. And, he had a paper route. He would just collect newspapers of the Des Moines Register and just, toss it to his neighbors. On the morning of September 5th, 1982, he had set out on his newspaper route with the family dog Gretchen. last time he was seen was by the other mail carriers, and they all saw him put the newspapers in his red wagon and walk down the street. That was the last time that anyone had actually seen him. About an hour later, at 6 a.m, Johnny's mom and dad woke up to a bunch of phone calls to their house from neighbors complaining that Johnny had not delivered their newspapers yet. And Johnny's dad is just like, oh God, is he goofing off? Did he oversleep? Like, what's going on? You know, so he checked the bedroom. Johnny's not there. He starts walking outside. 2 blocks down, he sees the red wagon. He runs up to it. The red wagon is just sitting there. Newspapers are still full. Gretchen, the dog, is still around there. Johnny's nowhere to be found. Immediately, this makes the families upset. So they're just like, okay, let's call the police here. Now, back in the day, this was 1982, so this is early 80s here. A missing person in Iowa actually had to be missing for 72 hours before they could really do anything. 3 days, which in today's world, everyone knows that the first 3 days are the most crucial to find someone.
Yeah. I would say even the first 24 hours.
Easily.
Hopefully you put something out. Oh my God.
Yeah. So Johnny's mother, Noreen, has claimed that the police took up to 45 minutes for them to actually get there. So by that time, 3 hours have gone by and Johnny's not there. So they put in the report. Police start investigating and start asking people, like, has anyone seen Johnny? Like, when was the last time you seen him? So one of the neighbors had actually said, not one of the neighbors, 2 of the neighbors had reported that they observed Johnny talking to a stocky man in a blue two-tone Ford Fairmont with Nebraska license plates about 20 minutes after he picked up his papers.
Oh, God.
So that was the only clue. They couldn't find this man. They couldn't find the car. So unfortunately, the case went cold. Okay. It's unfortunately an unsolved mystery. The police even said that he might have been a runaway even, you know, trying to cover their own ass, basically.
Right.
Then, 2 years later, on the south side of Des Moines, on August 12th, 1984, another young kid named Eugene Martin had also disappeared while on his paper route at 5 o'clock in the morning. And again, witnesses had came forward to say that they saw Eugene Martin talking to an older man that morning.
Oh, God.
And then he was nowhere to be seen. And no man was ever found, and Eugene and Johnny were never found as well. Now, the cool part about this story is that, you know, do you remember like missing kids on the milk carton thing?
Yeah.
This actually was something that kind of started in Iowa. So local dairy company called Anderson and Erickson would actually put pictures of Johnny and Eugene on the milk cartons and put little bios of them up there. Now, you know, by the late 1980s, like missing kid on the milk carton was like a nationwide, like almost like a joke at this point. Like it was pretty standard. It actually started in 1979 in New York with a kid named Eaton Patz, who was the very first kid to be featured on a milk carton. But with Eaton, Johnny, and Eugene, it became like this huge nationwide thing. And then missing kid on the milk carton has then turned into Amber Alerts, which has then turned into social media alerts. So in a way, though it's not a very ideal thing to start, like to be credited as, this is kind of the start of the kids on the milk carton thing. Now, this is where things get even darker. 2 years later, after Eugene went missing, another Des Moines boy named Mark Allen also disappeared on March 29th, 1986. Now, there's a little bit of difference between this one is that one, he wasn't a newspaper boy. Not saying that that really matters, but he did go missing. And the last thing that his mom said was that he saw him walking down the street, like to a friend's house, and was never seen again. Pretty similar to how Johnny and Eugene disappeared. Now, Johnny's parents got a divorce in 1993, so Noreen was living by herself when this next event happened. On the morning of March 12th, 1997, she claimed that a young man came to her door in the middle of the night claiming to be Johnny. He claimed that he was kidnapped and was placed in a child prostitution ring, only later to be discarded because he was too old to be useful anymore.
Now,
Now,
I have goosebumps. Oh my God.
Now, Johnny's dad, Noreen's ex-husband, he said, he's like, I don't know if this could be true, but he said she's not crazy. Like, so this could be potentially Johnny. Now, apparently the kid said that he is way too deep within the prostitution ring to ever come home because he's fearing for his
Oh,
safety. He's fearing for his family safety. So that was the last time that this woman had ever seen Johnny. Some people claim that it wasn't Johnny, that it was just this random kid that was
oh, who
pulling a
would
prank
do
on
that
her.
joke? Oh,
But
that
who
would be
would?
terrible.
And she also said that he had the same birthmark on his chest that Johnny did when he was a kid. So it's very possible. And child prostitution rings have been, like
They're real.
they're real. Like they're very much
Yeah.
a real thing. Now, this inspired Noreen to write a book called Why Johnny Can't Come Home, which was published in 2000. There's one last thing about this story. It's a long one, but it gets even juicier.
Yeah.
In 2006, a mysterious envelope pulled up on Noreen's doorstep, and it's inside were old photos of children tied up and with like hogtied, maskings all over them and stuff like that. And she said that one of them she recognized was Johnny. She took these photos to the Des Moines Police Department. They discredited it as something that was actually found on a child pornography site. But she said, to this day, she's like, I think that's Johnny. I swear in my heart that that's Johnny. Unfortunately, Johnny has still not been found. Eugene has never been found, and Mark Allen has never been found. But the fact that 3 boys in Des Moines, Iowa, which is not that big of a city, it's like 200,000 people at most, all 3 of them went disappeared in a matter of 4 years of each other, something clearly is going down. And I do believe that a child prostitution ring is involved in this. Like, there's no way that
It's
you
like
could...
made me emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only covered a brief amount of this. There's actually a great documentary film called Who Took Johnny that was released in 2014. It's available on Amazon Prime if anyone wants to watch it. It's a great documentary. It's unfortunately very chilling. It's emotional, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's kind of this cool story because it started such a nationwide like phenomenon of missing kids on the milk carton situation. And not a lot of people actually know the story of Johnny Gosh. So I wanted to share that with all of you. So.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I have like goosebumps. I feel like my entire body. I feel like anytime anything has to do with children, I feel very like sensitive about it and very heavy. Wow. That's disturbing.
Yeah.
And still I wanted to say unsolved.
It's still unsolved. And I wanted to share that one because, one, it's a cool thing because not a lot of cool things come out of Iowa. So I'm just like, oh, like this is an
You came out of Iowa, literally.
That's true. Actually, there's another story, which I'll say for another time, but that's the Villisca Axe murders, which is an unsolved mystery. But I'll save that for another time.
Oh
but
my God.
Yeah, I wanted to give a spooky Iowa story of what went down in my hometown in the 80s, like not too long ago.
Not long ago at all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So creepy.
Yeah. So I hope all of you enjoyed our unsolved mysteries.
Right. Hopefully everyone can go and, I don't know, take a nice warm shower and listen to happy music. That's what I gotta do. I'm like, oh my God.
Gonna do. Yeah.
And like I'm highly caffeinated. I'm blessed and highly caffeinated. And I got, my Trenta Starbies is doing the Lord's work right now because heavens. That you saved the last one.
I saved it for a reason. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
So for those of you who are watching,
scary. Oh my God.
So for those of you who are watching and listening to us, I hope you enjoyed our unsolved mysteries here. We will definitely bring this episode back because I love talking about this stuff. And that being said, if you want to, send us your favorite unsolved mysteries on social media. Kyle, where can people find us?
So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fear the Queer Podcast. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And if you see our cute little disturbed faces, we're on YouTube, so you can watch us there too. Josh, if people want to contact us, how can they contact us or how can they not contact us?
Well, how you can contact us, it's a slide into our DMs. That's actually how we've collaborated with a lot of other podcasters and potentially some creepy people, which now that I'm sensitive to all these unsolved mysteries, I'm just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't answer some of these.
Yeah.
What you shouldn't do is email us at fearthequeerpodcast@gmail.com because
email,
just like that city, it is a ghost town in that email account there.
It is a ghost town and it is cursed by a witch.
The
You
same
heard it
witch
here.
that put Bella in the witch elm.
It could happen. It could
You
happen.
never know. It could happen.
You never know. I feel like I need to like pray or like I don't know, put on some disco music.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I love scary, spooky, unsolved things, but I also am like, wow, my little gay ass, like the adrenaline is pumping and I am terrified now. So,
Oh yeah.
Good for
The fact that we're
us.
talking about it, I was gonna say the fact that we're talking about it, the sky has went from like a sunny to like a grayish
Oh
tint.
yeah.
Something
yeah.
is about to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the cat was meowing, and then I hear sirens, and it got colder in my house, which I was sweating. I mean, I'm sweaty now because I'm all nervousy, but good Lord. And I guess that just remains an unsolved mystery.
An
why
unsolved
I sweat
mystery.
so much.
Yeah, that's the most unsolved mystery of all time. Why does Kyle sweat so much?
Why do I sweat so much?
But
Probably
as
my
always,
sodium intake.
Yeah. Or your caffeine intake.
Oh. Well,
Maybe.
I'm going to drink some water.
Yeah. As always, I'm Josh.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're Fear the
Queer.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't get stuck in a witch elm.
Or do.
Or do, yeah.
Or do. I don't know. I don't know your prerogative.
Right.